Hello everybody, welcome back to the Nocturnal Gaming Network. My name is Zira, and today we are once again playing Spaceflight Simulator. So today begins the second part of our rocket slash lander slash rover slash communication satellite, all vanilla, to the moon. And we're going to do the final piece here. This is going to be the main mover for the the actual rocket to the moon. So basically, what we need is, let's see, we need a probe core. We need this for the rocket that's going to be launching this. We don't need the probe core for the lander because we already have one of those. So let's just set this down here for now. We need a broadsword thruster, and we're going to need a fuel tank. So let's go back to basic here. Here's our fuel tank, and then we're going to need a couple landing legs because this lander is actually going to land on the moon. And the way that I was justifying this, the way I was thinking that it should work, like if we were going to give this almost like a cannon here, would be if we put the satellite in orbit, right, we would need something to communicate between the satellite and the rover. So this lander will land the rover and then maintain connection with it and then use its antenna to connect to the to the communication satellite. And that's what I've come up with. That's what I'm going with. I think it makes sense. So yeah, this is basically all we need here, because what we're going to do is we're going to use the lift engine of this rocket right here to actually send ourselves off to the moon here. So we need a connector. So the connector will go right here, and then we need to go back to aerodynamic and we can start doing our fairing. And this shouldn't be that big or ridiculous of a rocket on this one. We just, need to launch this final piece into space here. So we'll go back to basic. I think I'm going to give this thing 2 main engine phases here, or two propellant tanks, 2 liquid fuel tanks on its main stage. And this should finish circularization for us. And then it should also begin sending us to the moon. Unless, let's give ourselves just a hair extra. We're going to do this. We're going to put another propellant stage there, and then now we're going to connect to this and put our boosters on this one. Just like this. And we'll do a double stack of boosters. And this is also probably way overkill on the fuel. But at the same time, maybe it isn't, because we've got 177 tons. So each of these Hawks are good for 115. So we have a fairly low thrust to weight ratio here for the first stage, at least. I think this will be good. I think the first stage is going to go up pretty quick. The second stage, it's going to, work towards circularizing ourselves. And then the third stage is going to do most of the circularization as well as docking, as well as send us into space. So we will launch this thing right away here. Now, boom, boom, engines on. We're going to throttle all the way up. We're going to go to the map. Let's see here. We should have over here, this is that little piece from the last episode that we were deorbiting. I basically got it so that the periapsis was inside the planet, and I'm just going to let it go now. Here is the current rocket at 50 kilometers. We're going to wait on this thing. We're going to bring it around. We're going to try again to intercept it instead of launching when it's right overhead and catching up to it. This time though, we want to be like, we launched so fast on that last one. I think we're going to want to go right here. We're going to try it, because this one's going to be a slow launch, so we're probably going to have to catch up to it a little, but that's fine. we want to do, where this is a heavy launch, we can actually go through and start tapping ourselves sideways now. What that's going to do is it's going to give us a lot bigger turn on our launch here. We're going to be more circularized than if we would burn straight up and then go to 2,000 meters. So we still want to be at around 45 degrees to the ground at 2,000 meters, but we can pretty much just follow our prograde relative to where we are here, and that'll basically do what we need it to do here. So we're going pretty good here. There we go. We're almost out of fuel here. So we're actually going to stop. We're going to try and add some height to our orbit. Just going to be a little radial out. We can come here, and what we want to do is separate these, get ourselves boosting, please. Thank you. And then we'll get rid of the fairing. And then this one should take us into orbit here. This one should easily take us, well, not into orbit, but into space, I should say. And, where is it? It's right there, so we can do a fairly high orbit, I think. There we go. There we go. We'll burn prograde here. We'll stay at about 35 kilometers. Yeah. I think we are going to have to try and get outside of this thing's orbit again. Alright. There we go. Stopped it just a hair too soon. Boom. So our next engine stage is on, and we're ready to go again to bring ourselves into orbit. We're actually going to follow this right now, and we're going to turn radial in and start boosting ourselves just a little bit horizontally. This one actually might be pretty damn close here. This is going to allow us to catch up with our apoapsis too. So we'll do that. Alright, we're going to be just below this thing as it goes by. This was a pretty good job calculating where I needed to go to intercept it. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I'm not going, I don't have a fast enough orbit here yet. I need to continue adding speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to turn ourselves a little bit radial here, just so we don't catch up on our apoapsis so fast. Because we still have a little ways to go until we actually make orbit. So, a little bit more radial, just about here. Just about here. Alright, so what do we got? We got probably another minute until we make orbit. So we can begin to rotate ourselves towards prograde here. We're going to start catching up a little bit if we go too far. There we go. That's a little too far. At about a quarter of the planet. That's good. We're getting there. Go away, closest approach thing. I might have to turn you off because it's... that is obnoxious where it's just over the rocket all the time. Alright. That's fine. We get this, though. We're going to burn basically perfectly prograde. That will allow us to give the most momentum to expanding our orbit here. Yeah, we're perfectly fine. We're close enough that... We're close enough to orbit that the apoapsis isn't going to be pushing ahead too much. Or we aren't going to catch up on the apoapsis too much, I should say. And any second now, we've actually reached a low Earth orbit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to boost myself till I'm at like 45 here. So 45, and what's the other side? We're at 49.9. So This will allow us to catch up. We're going to need like 2 turns around the planet, maybe 3. So let's do that. Here's 1. We're actually pretty close at 1 time around the planet. So this is like perfect, like almost like I exactly planned it this way, but I didn't, unfortunately. So we need to zoom in on this and just keep an eye out. So literally right when we are at our closest point here. No, we sort of lost a little bit of space, but I can see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. We're going to turn our RCS thrusters on, and then we can do what we did the last time. This time we just need to turn prograde, and then we can, where is it? Boost prograde. And now it's should be ever so slightly, moving towards us. We can accelerate faster here. There we go. Point towards it once again. Burn for just a second. We don't want to burn too much, because if you burn too much with your main thruster at 100% power, you're going to overshoot it. So you want to be very careful when you're doing this. We can actually burn or turn a little bit to the right of it, and we'll burn again. And that should cancel some of our sideways momentum. We should probably use the RCS thrusters to slow ourselves down a little bit too, because we're coming in pretty hot. We might need to turn the rocket around to actually cut the momentum, but I think we're probably good. Yeah, let's turn it sideways to give it a little more rightward momentum. There we go. That's almost perfect. Now we can line ourselves approximately up with it angle-wise, so right about here. There we go, and we'll begin to slow ourselves down. We can go left a little bit too, because that's going to help us to line up with it better. Perfect. All right. Go to the left, slow down, go to the left a little bit, slow down. So right about there, we are very, very basically perfectly lined up with this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and switch to it, please. Switch to. And I'm going to undock this piece. There we are. Oh, that sucks that it didn't actually keep us selected to the right craft. So I think we want this one. No, we don't. Ah! Alright. Slow it down again. Move over to the left, slow it down. So what happens is, since we weren't in contact with the correct one, there we go. So we can zoom in and make sure we hit the right separator this time. We're actually going to turn the RCS thrusters on, and we're going to accelerate ever so slightly. There we are. Now I can follow these and hopefully zoom in enough to see the correct one here. It's right here. Switch. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're immediately going to take and rotate this thing around. We're going to put it up at full thrust. We're going to go retrograde here, and we're just going to deorbit this thing, just so it's out of the way and it doesn't cause any issues here. So there we are. We're deorbited. Now we can switch to this one, and I think, yeah, this is the correct one here. So we'll just use our RCS thrusters, give ourselves a little bit of a boost in the correct direction, and we can once again begin to close the gap here. So, right about like this. Ever so slowly. Just remember to keep yourself at a reasonable speed and whatnot, because if you go too fast and you smash into this, things are going to break. And it's bad when things break. So readjust our angle. There we go. This should be good. We should be coming in at the perfect angle. There we go. Our power is basically good. Our fuel is really good. We've got a good amount of fuel here. So what we can do is we can turn the RCS thrusters off, rotate ourselves. Well, we probably should go through and check. Our periapsis is 49.9 by 52. Okay, that's acceptable. We will set the moon as our target now. And all right, so there's the area we need to burn. So let's preemptively rotate ourselves to about the right angle, and we will accelerate through time. So right about here. All right, we're going to fine-tune our adjustment. I think we're going to do this in 2 burns. So let's begin the first burn right about now, and we need to watch our fuel. So basically this primary mover here, that I don't think is going to take us all the way to the moon. I think we're going to have to use our lander engine to actually hit the moon. So what we're going to do is, like I said, keep an eye on the fuel for this one. We'll do it in 2 burns. Once we get really close to running out of fuel, what we're going to do is we're going to separate the primary stage here. We may actually have enough to make it to the moon, which if we do, that'll be surprising and wonderful, because that'll mean our lander will have a full tank of fuel. But I really don't think we will. So we'll see. Like, I'm thinking we're going to cut it right here, actually. Yeah, let's cut it right about here. All right, and what we can do is we're going to go through and separate this stage. There we go. The actual lander and everything, that's good. That'll go on its own. It'll go around. We can catch up with that in just a little bit, but for now we're just going to go around until we hit our apoapsis. So right here, we're at our apoapsis. There's a visible difference in the ships, in the 2 different rockets, so we can just sort of burn prograde. That'll lower us. There we go. Now this is on a collision course with Earth, and we will switch back to this thing. There we go. Everything's looking good still. We're going to speed through time again, and we're going to catch up. Well, not catch up, but move back to our, there goes that primary mover stage. We're going to head back to where we need to boost. We can slow down, say, just outside, make sure our angle's about right, make sure we've turned our engine on, and we can just do the final burn to get ourselves to the moon here. Alright, we just wait. Now, this rocket, I'm thinking since it's a communication type satellite and it wants to go to the ground, I think what we want to do is we want to go to like 50 kilometers on the moon. I think that's probably an appropriate orbital height off the moon. So once we get close, we're going to get the encounter. There's the encounter. We're going to slow ourselves way down, and we're just going to zoom in on this. There's our other moon lunar probe satellite. That's the one that has, basically been here for the last couple episodes, and it's been searching for a landing spot. And, because this is my video and you can't really stop me, I'm going to say that rocket that satellite, whereas this satellite over here, this one, was actually responsible for finding a landing zone. And the landing zone is going to be somewhere fairly flat, right? So somewhere like over here on one of these plateaus, like I'm thinking this plateau area right here looks good. So we're going to try to land on that quadrant of the moon. We are set up with an encounter. We can actually accelerate through time here. We just want to make sure that we're not going to smash into this, because that would be just our luck that I set this thing up and do multiple launches and then I smash into one of my satellites in the entirety of space. Okay, but we're good. So now we can just accelerate time and get ready to capture ourselves around the moon. So there we are, we're in orbit. I'm going to slow ourselves down just to line ourselves up, because I like to do all this stuff preemptively. That way I'm not last minute trying to get it done, get our throttle all the way up. There we go. We're at about the right angle, so I'm going to fast forward again until we're right about the periapsis. We want to be a little before the periapsis here because we don't want to, again, be last minute and actually cause problems here. There we go. Once we capture, there we are, we can actually check in on our periapsis again, 46.9 kilometers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to go just past the periapsis and then burn retrograde to continue our circularization, and that should have a reverse effect on the periapsis. It should basically, if we stay behind the periapsis when we're burning towards it, we can actually use that to slightly raise our periapsis. I mean, it's not going to give you anything, super, but, we're at 46.9 again. We were at 47, but then I let the periapsis get away from me, so, whatever. We're going to get our apoapsis perfectly towards 50 kilometers here. So right about there. That's perfect. And then we can preemptively rotate ourselves prograde, and that'll allow us to set our periapsis back to 50. Now remember, with the moon, you're around a smaller gravitational influence, so if you burn at 100%, it's really going to make a big change. So just be prepared and thrust gently so you don't, go through and ruin all your hard work here. Once again, go back to the apoapsis. And I'm going to go back down to 1, and we're going to do one last time warp right there. Oop, just a tiny bit more. 50 by 50. So we are perfectly set. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to separate. There we go. And after separating that, we're going to close the solar panels, just because we don't want them in the way. And then we're going to turn ourselves retrograde. Now, we're going to begin our landing on the moon sequence here. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our legs are down ahead of time. We don't want to be fighting with them to lower them when we're actually trying to land. So we're right across from the periapsis. Let's burn to lower that. We're going to lower it to like 7.5 is fine, 7.8 would be fine, 10 would be fine, something like that. We'll preemptively rotate ourselves to what will be our periapsis. Come on, a little bit further, right about there. Okay, so we've preemptively rotated ourselves and we're going to accelerate through time. And when we're landing here on the moon, basically what we're trying to do is the first thing we want to do is burn retrograde so that we are lowering our orbital speed, okay? The 260 velocity right? It's 260 meters per second we're spinning around the planet. As we lower that, gravity from the moon will begin to pull us down towards the moon. So we're going to go from burning retrograde to cancel out our velocity to burning downwards towards the planet, which will probably also be pretty retrograde in its angle. So we're going to do that, and that will begin to slow our descent. All right, we're just about 10 kilometers now, so I'm going to face retrograde now, and I'm going to burn again. And this is going to quickly actually give me an intercept with the planet, and I'm just going to keep burning here. I'm just going to keep going retrograde until the trajectory line is about where I wanted to land. So I wanted to land pretty much right in this area here. There was the two flats with the little V in between them. So I'm going to keep that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward. Oh no. Fast forward until we are at 5 kilometers. And I can actually probably slow down my trajectory a little more, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to fast forward till 5 kilometers, and then this is probably pretty close. Once we're here, we can burn retrograde more. That's going to slow down our pull towards the planet, as well as continue slowing down our momentum. There it is. It has shifted, and now we are 5 kilometers off the planet. So we're going to want to... What is up with this? Today I'm trying to record on this phone and everyone wants me, and my battery's low, and so many different things. Alright, so there we go. We'll just continue burning like this. I'm actually going to turn my RCS thrusters on because I can use the RCS thrusters to help control my descent here. So as far as it goes, we will use the RCS to continue lowering our sideways momentum here, and then we can just sort of go down to like 12%. There we go, and we'll burn at like 12%, something like that, 10% maybe even, and that's going to keep our speed at a reasonable rate here. We don't want to be going too fast, but at the same time, if we burn too long, you know, we will sort of get rid of all of our momentum, and then we'll have to wait for the moon to capture us again and pull us back down. So we're 2,000 meters off the terrain. We want to keep slowing ourselves down. We want to make sure we don't come down too hard. So I think we want to... Let's burn until we catch up to our apoapsis here. So about 30, that's pretty good. If we zoom out here, we can sort of see our landing spot. We're going to rotate ourselves. There we go. 30, 27, 26, 15. We're about 10. So this is pretty good. Once we're here, we can pick a landing spot. We're just going to wait for the moon to capture us again and pull us down more. We can sort of go back down to like 10% thrust, something like that. That'll keep us from gaining velocity too fast. Keep an eye on your fuel, by the way, because we are pretty low on fuel for the main engine here, right? We don't want to run out. All right. So what you're seeing here is the arrow that denotes our velocity direction. That's moving around. That's telling us that we're basically canceled out on our sideways momentum. So now we can just sort of come down here and continue with the last little bit to actually make a nice, easy landing here. Go down to like 9%. That's probably good. We're still gaining speed, but what we can do is we can go to like 11% thrust, and then use our RCS thrusters to actually appropriately slow us down and control our direction here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make landfall, or actually touch down on the moon. There we go. And now we can rotate ourselves ever so slightly here. Boom. So we have plenty of thrust. What I think I want to do here is I'm going to put the rover down right here. All right, and then I'm going to move like back to the left, I think, on the hill and try to land up there. So in order to do that, we actually want to use our RCS thrusters to go up, and then we're going to rotate ourselves horizontally. And then the RCS thruster direction is always relative to the craft. So no matter which way the craft is pointing, if we push the up button, it's going to push the craft in the upwards direction, like in the whatever direction the arrow's pointing. All right, so let's get ready to do this. This is going to be a very, very gentle process here. Boom. All right, there we are. And now we can ever so slightly set ourselves down. Boom. Very, very gently. Be careful here. If you do this wrong, your craft explodes. And we spent way too much time working on this to actually want to do that. Now, make sure, real quick, that you're still connected to the craft and not to the rover, because if you drop the rover, depending on which port you hit, it might switch you to the rover. So, we're still switched to the craft. We're going to burn up, we're going to rotate ourselves, and then we're going to land on the hill just behind us. So let's go up and rotate, and you can press multiple of these buttons at a time, and that's very helpful. Boom. Alright, there we are. We have successfully launched ourselves up, and now we're just going to use the RCS thrusters to gently hover ourselves up onto that hill. Ever so slightly. And also, this is, if we were to continue with the canon a little bit here and say that this thing needs to maintain a line of sight with the rover, right? Or something like that, that would put it at a fairly good position up on a hill where we can keep in contact with this rover. There we are. So we have very gently set ourselves down. Our velocity is 0 meters per second. What we're going to do is we're going to really quickly deploy our solar panels so we can keep our power levels up. And we're still at 0 meters per second. So that tells me that this is in a pretty flat, pretty stable location because it's not wobbling at all. So we will swap over to the rover here now. Maybe? Oh, I set it as a target instead of switching to it. There we are. Switching to the rover. There we are. Here's our little rover. We've got the solar panel that can go up and down. Okay, that's going to keep our batteries charged. And, your throttle doesn't really matter. We just use the arrow. Oh, we got to turn the wheels back on because remember we turned them off in the last episode to prevent the battery from draining. Now, when you're driving the rover, you want to be careful where you're on the moon and you've got real low gravity. When you go over the hills, if you get too much speed, you actually risk rolling this thing over. So just like how I suggest that you tap the buttons to rotate your craft instead of just holding them, I recommend that you tap your button to accelerate your little rover here so you don't wind up going through and taking a nasty spill, right? We don't want this thing to wind up upside down somewhere. And that goes doubly for when we actually get into like a little dip here. We want to be very careful that with whatever momentum we have, it doesn't flip us over. So this is probably pretty good here. We're going. Our power's going down, but that's fine because we get the solar panels. So when our power is out, we can just sort of put the solar panel up and recharge ourselves. See how we're bouncing? It's not good that we bounce like this because that's what's going to lead to us flipping over. There we are. We're through the first little dip. We still got pretty good contact with this thing. At least that's what I'm going to say. And then we're just gonna make our way over here. Another thing I should mention is you want to keep your center of mass as close to the ground as possible. That's going to help prevent the tipping. So when you're building rovers, you want to build them like wider rather than taller. And if you've got something like a solar panel, you want to stop the rover before you actually extend the solar panel. Because if you don't, you risk them being extra tippy. I don't know if this is really translating through the video. It's something that you'll see more when you're like piloting the rover here, when you're actually controlling it. But you know, if you drive with the solar panel extended, you're a lot more likely to flip the thing over. So that's our mission. We have completed it. We've dropped a research rover on the moon. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh no. And I flipped it over. Can I flip it back? Please. I have enough power that I should be able to do this. There we go. Take that. We can just very, very gently. All right. We're just going to stop right here. We're going to raise the solar panel, and we're going to call it good before I flip this thing over on camera. All right, so that's it. That's it. We've got our rover, and we've landed it on the moon, and we've created this multi-launch system, and it's all vanilla, and it's amazing, and I recommend if you aren't following along and trying this out, you go do so. Remember, this game is 100% free, and you can, try it out. So thank you all so much for watching. My name's Zira, and this is the Nocturnal Gaming Network bringing you Spaceflight Simulator. Have yourselves a wonderful night, everybody.